Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys, how are you today? Hopefully you are fine and in good condition. Now, I'm Nilna Nabilatus Shalihah and my partner Shinta Fauziah. In this meeting, we want to presentation about characteristic of counseling guidance counselor. So in this meeting, I will explain 1. The characteristic of the counseling guidance counselor according to the experts, and 2. Things that should be avoided by counselors during the counseling guidance process. So, please keep attention for us. Okay. The first is the characteristic of the counseling guidance counselor according to the expert. Now I will explain according to Hackney and Cormier. According to Hackney and Cormier, among the personal characteristics of counselor, they are considered important in the context of successful counseling are self-awareness and understanding, good physiological health, sensitivity and understanding of race, ethnicity and cultural factors, sensitivity to an understanding of racial, ethnic, and cultural factors in self and others, open-mindedness, being objectivity, competent, trustworthy, and interpersonal attractiveness. So the first is self-awareness and understanding. This self-awareness includes 4 things, namely 1. Awareness of one's own needs, such as the need to be loved, appreciate, and approve. 2. Awareness of one's own motivation for helping, such as what do you want to gain from helping others, and does helping others make you feel good? And 3. Awareness of one's own feelings, such as happiness, satisfaction, sadness, angry, hate, and fear. And the last, number 4, is awareness of strength, limitation, and problem-solving skills, such as coping with adversity and stress. Self-awareness or self-understanding is very important in counseling for several reasons. First, the counselor can see things more objectively and prevent deficiencies or weaknesses, namely difficulties that may arise because the counselor doesn't understand himself, especially in interpersonal interaction. One example of difficulty is projection. Counselors who don't understand their own needs and feelings may project their feelings more to the client and don't admit the truth. For example, I'm very angry with the client today, when in fact it is, I feel angry today with the client's presence. Second, self-understanding contributes to creating a sense of security and comfort for counselors and clients. Counselors who lack self-understanding can cause themselves to overreact to clients' message and responses with a defensive attitude. For example, clients ask whether counseling can make his condition worse. Okay, the counselor responded with an uncertain answer. And the characteristic number 2 is good physiological health. Although no one expects a counselor to be a perfect person, counselors are required to have a client be in a psychologically healthy state and not be bothered by their own problem. And number 3, from characteristic of the counseling guidance counselor is sensitivity and understanding of race, ethnicity, and cultural factors. Many clients live in 2 worlds, namely the world of their own culture and ethnicity and the world of multicultural reality. More recently, the counseling profession has begun to undertake activities based on awareness or understanding of this and their implications for clients, counselor, and the counseling process. There are two views on how counselors understand the ethnic and cultural context of themselves and their clients, namely, the ethnic approach, or focusing on a specific culture, and the emic approach, or universal culture. Number 4 is open attitude. So, the open attitude of this counselor has three functions in counseling. The first, the counselor can accommodate the client's feelings, attitude, and behaviors that may be different from his own. Second, counselors can interact effectively with diverse clients. And last, the third, an open attitude is a prerequisite for honest communication. Okay, the next is objectivity. Objectivity refers to an ability to engage with the client, and at the same time, the counselor can see accurately what is going on with the client and the counseling process. Next, number 6, competence. So, the ethical standards of the mental health profession seek to maintain high standards of competence. According to Egan, competence refers to the knowledge and skills of counselor to help clients. Number 7, trustworthiness. These characteristics include the qualities of reliability, responsibility, ethical standard, and predictability. This trait is very important in counseling because it affects the positive relationship between the counselors and the client and can encourage the client to open up to very personal problem in his life. And the last characteristic from Hackney and Cormier is interpersonal attractiveness. Clients perceive counselors as having interpersonal attractiveness when they see them as equal or comparable to themselves. The counselor's interpersonal attractiveness is characterized by friendly, warm, and pleasant traits.
Hello, I'm Shinta Fauziah. I will continue explain about the characteristic of counseling. So, Anthony Yeo on 2007 suggests that counseling will be effective if the counselor has basic knowledge of counseling theory and practice, proficiency in interviewing, and intervention skill in solving problems. He then states about the counseling as follows. For the first, confidence. A counselor has a person who believes that and is speaks according to their respective belief. This provides an understanding that the counselor must have a basis of belief and piety according to their respective religions. The second, self-awareness. Counselors are expected to have self-awareness, such as related to their followers or belief problem of difficult the experience and their level of patience. And then, number 3, knowledge and skill. Counselors need to have adequate knowledge or insight and skill about counseling. Knowledge and understanding of human characteristics, creative thinking, active problems in developing verbal communication like reflecting on feelings, reflecting on content, summarizing, reflecting on abilities, and nonverbal aspect like a body language, and then eye contact and facial expression. And then the correct view of the role. The counselor needs to have the right view of his role, not to see himself as someone who knows everything and can do everything, but counselors who do not understand their role may be in a hurry to help the counselee in their own way, without giving the counselee the opportunity to actively participate in solving the problems. And number 5, the personal qualities. Personal qualities such as self-awareness, warmth, concern, acceptance, empathy, and knowledge. Counselors can create togetherness with clients in dealing with the problems. Besides that, the counselor must have an interest in helping his counselee and energetically work to fulfill that interest. And number 2, the counselor accepts the counselee as a person without any condition. And number 3, the counselors have confidence in their therapeutic abilities. Number 4, the counselors have both theoretical and practical knowledge, are flexible and are not dogmatic and open to accepting new skill. Number 5, the counselors are able to solve their own problems, thus avoiding problems, depression, hostility, low self-esteem, and self-pity. And in number 6, the counselors are diligent, hardworking in conducting experiments. Number 7, the counselors adhere to ethics, are responsible, and use counseling for the benefit of the counselee, not for his own benefit. And then the counselors work professionally, are able to maintain human values, and have personal happiness in running events. And then the counselor is enthusiastic and optimistic about taking notes, even when experiencing difficulties or problems in his life. So this appearance is shown to the counselee. And then the counselors are passionate about helping their counselors sincerely and feel free to refer counselee to other experts. And then the counselors are serious about the welfare of others. And then number 6, the characteristic that counselor must have is interpersonal skills. So the skills refers to the ability to build a relationship with the counselee so that he feels at home in counseling process. The 3 skills are described as follows. For the first, we must have verbal skill. This refers to the content of the conversation in counseling process. So the counselor uses this skill to pay attention to the counselee in order to facilitate the smooth flow of conversation. And more clearly, our 3 skills are as follows. First, vocal qualities. Counselors need to pay attention to the intonation, tone, and volume of the voice so that the counselee feels comfortable to follow the conversation in main counseling. And then number 2, the verbal tracking. The counselor needs to follow the counselee's conversation by listening carefully to main issue or the core of the conversation. In this case, the counselor's task is to listen or record the important conversation of the counselee, so that the counseling interview doesn't change direction. And number 3, the verbal responses. That these skills are at the core of the counseling interview. There are 6 verbal response skills summed up in the acronym PRISCO, which include: first, P is for paraphrase. This skill refers to the repetition of the counselee's thoughts and keywords through the counselee's own words. This skill is a way to tell the counselee that the counselor is listening to what the counselee has to say. And 2, R for reflection. Reflection of feeling is a way to communicate the counselor's empathy and understanding of the counselee's feelings without saying, "I understand what you feel," to identify the counselor's feelings, and the counselor can find out through the classification of the main human feelings, namely being glad, sad, mad, and scared, and other. And 3, I for interpretation. In this skill, it is necessary to label and describe the counselee's thought, feeling, and behavior in a positive way. And then number 4 for S, summarization. The summarizing skill includes helping to eliminate burden, taking a break from the interview, providing clarification, and providing feedback to the counselee at the end of the meeting. And then C for clarification. In the interview process, the counselor may experience confusion, especially in the counselor speaks too fast, too much, or doesn't connect. So when the counselor speaks incoherently and makes unclear statements, the counselor must be able to read minds and understand everything the counselor is saying. Based on this, clarification is very important. And then O for open and closed question. Like this open-ended question begins with a question like what, how, why. Meanwhile, the closed question is like ask for a short answer from the counselor like yes or no. And then the nonverbal skills. This skill is related to the counselor's nonverbal behavior in facilitating the continuation of the interview and attending to the counseling. So it can put the nonverbal behavior that helps it into the classification of behavior that is summed up in the acronym SOLAR. SOLAR S. Facing the person squarely. The good sitting position of the counselor and counselee in the counseling process is the one facing each other because it can facilitate communication. And then O for adopting an open posture. The counselor can look fully at the counselee and he needs to display an open posture that it is not defensive and warm. Defensive attitude is characterized by folded hands and clenched fingers, so that when the counselor is open, the counselee can develop an attitude of trust in counseling to the counselor. And then L for leaning forward. Leaning forward or sitting slightly leaning towards in the counseling usually shows the counselor's attention and willingness to listen to the counseling. And then E for maintaining eye contact. When listening to the counselor's conversation, the counselor needs to maintain eye contact with the counselee. And then R for being relaxed. The counselor must be calm, relaxed when dealing with the counselee because the counselee who comes generally experience stress, experience tension and feels unhappy, so we must make the counselee feel relaxed with the counselor. And then the client observation skills. An effective counselor is one who continuously observes the behavior of the counselee. Maybe the counselee talks a lot about himself, but verbally and non-verbally. In this case, the counselor needs to have a high awareness of what the counselee is saying, especially expressions to body movements, facial expression, vocal qualities, and differences between body language and verbal language. So the counselors need to know the form of the expression from the counselee so that he can feel what the counselee feels so that he can give a good response.
Okay, next I will explain things that should be avoided by counselors during the counseling guidance process. So there are several things that counselors need to avoid regarding relationship building in the counseling process. According to you, there are 5 things that need to be avoided in the counseling process, namely 1. Indifference. Clients are treated as patients or cases who view them as incompetent and take them for granted. There is one feeling of being uninvolved and not caring about them. Number 2, impatient and angry. So the counselor tries to be patient and not angry with the counselee because he is afraid that it will make the counselor feel more and more burdened, and of course it will be very difficult to form a parallel relationship in the counseling process. Number 3, keep giving advice. Sometimes Counselors inadvertently give advice to client because they think that in making decisions the client is too complicated. Next, number 4, emotionally affected. Client may react to us in such a way by bringing up latent or unresolved emotional problems. Counselors can find themselves feeling very sad because of the problems experienced by their clients and finally feeling depressed. And the last, number 5, not creative. So there is a feeling of static when the counselor is dealing with various cases. Counselors cannot make reforms and instead have a tendency to do the same things. Whenever the counselor is dealing with the same type of client, the counselor does the same for the client. In other words, being passive, not trying new things in giving treatment to their clients. In this case, the counselor should try to always improve his ability and knowledge in order to provide the best service for his clients.
And then the other thing that counselors need to avoid when counseling guidance is including first taking sides or emphasizing on unilateral information. Usually the problem that the counselor hears is one aspect of the problem that is seen from the counselor's own point of view, and then drawing premature, hasty, or careless conclusion. Often what is stated by the counselor is only a symptom or result of the core of the problem and is not necessarily the real problem. Therefore, a counselor must be a good, careful listener, not too quick to draw conclusions or immediately give a way out. And then, too much interference. So the counselor usually demands full attention without caring that the counselor has responsibilities to the family and the other counselor. To avoid this, the counselor must be able to find the right way to deal with it without destroying or the good relationship that may have been built. And then the failure to keep secrets and self-determining and ignoring success psychologists can direct but not impose their will. When someone has his own interest in a field that he can do better, it will not force him to change direction. People who do counseling need encouragement, praise, and positive input from psychologists to motivate them and encourage them to get better. Every good thing he does, of course, needs to be appreciated by the psychologist and direct him to the right thing if he feels needs direction. And then don't everything to the bad things and the other. Okay, I think it is enough from me, Shinta Fauziah, and my friends Nilna, Nabilatus, Shalihah. Hopefully, it can be useful for us in becoming a counselor. Thank you very much for watching our video, and sorry for our mistakes. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.